The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. We provide programs and services designed to assist and support the older town residents who wish to remain in their homes as they age. If we don't currently provide a service, we will try and connect you to that service. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Welcome to Project Independence and You. Rebecca Miller is having some audio problems. We can't hear her at all. So Rebecca, maybe you want to change your setting. So today we have a great show. Of course, there's a little technology snafu as always. I'm here. This is Christina Liu. I'm here with Otto Lohse, and we are speaking with the wonderful Fire Marshal. And I know, Otto, would you like to give a little introduction?
Well, I believe you know my son, Eric, from the...
Yes, we're firefighters together.
Yeah, right, at the Manhattan Lakeville. So he says hello. That's one. And he gave you a positive review. So that was a good thing, too.
That's always a step in the right direction.
Yeah, right. No, he speaks very highly of you and very happy that you've moved along as you have through the ranks. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to hear from somebody who has been through all the years and experience you've been through. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and frankly, I didn't until I prepared for this show, is the depth of what is involved as far as a fire marshal is concerned. And, the involvement, as I understand it, and we'd love to hear from you a little bit about, like I looked up, there's 71 volunteer fire departments in Nassau County. And within that, there's companies. And all of these basically are coordinated and trained and whatnot through your department, as I understand it. So maybe if you could give us a little bit of an overview of all the things that are done in your department, I think that would be a good start.
Okay, yeah, great. I'd love to explain what we do and I guess how the whole system works. Basically, the Nassau County Fire Commission was established back in 1938. There are 71 volunteer fire departments throughout all of Nassau County. They're 100% volunteer. They do have some paid employees or career employees that assist with driving, and there's some career emergency medical technicians and paramedics that they have to help bolster the staffing. But our office, basically, we're considered the county fire coordinator. So we basically coordinate. We coordinate the departments. We make sure that their training is available for them. Nassau County has one of the best fire service academies in the country. They give an array of courses from just your basic fire suppression courses and the utilization of the air masks, so as we call them, self-contained breathing apparatus, so that when they're ready to respond, they respond as professional firefighters, just as you have in your career departments, such as the FDNY. They have courses also that work with carbon monoxide, so we can make sure that they stay on top of the most relative new situations that confront them. Chemical response following the events of 9/11, they took weapons of mass destruction and, building collapse courses, building construction courses. Unfortunately, in this day and age, active shooter has become something that we have to be prepared to respond to. So that when people pick up the phone, whether it's at a home or a business, and they call 911 and they get the fire department to respond, they're ready to do what they're supposed to do, and they're ready to, take care of the situation, get on top of the situation, and solve the person's problem that called. You can't kind of go to a fire scene and put your hands up in the air and say, I don't know what to do. I have to call somebody. But we run a hazardous materials team as well that responds on all hazardous materials calls, from car accidents to 2 weeks ago, we had an overturned 11,000 gallon gasoline tanker that we work with the fire department to offload safely. And the operation went smoothly because of the fact that the firefighters are trained to such a high level.
When I'm sorry, but when somebody becomes a volunteer, they have to go to the academy. I understand, right? So how long would you, as a rookie volunteer, have to be trained before you actually are able to go out on any kind of activity? How long do you spend in the academy, really?
Their first year as a probie firefighter, as we call them, probationary firefighters, it's probably about a year. And that doesn't mean every day of the year because of the fact that our volunteers have full-time jobs, whether it be doctors, working on television, working for government, whatever it may be. We have to make it flexible for them. So they go to a 9-week course, at least most recently, I remember it was 9 weeks on 1 day a week that they go to the fire academy to learn the essentials of firefighting. That's the terminologies, all different types of things that help build you into the knowledge you need to be a firefighter, the decisions you have to make on the fly pretty quickly when you're in a dangerous environment. And then they go for a full week of actually hands-on training that they light fires. They teach the guys how to operate with their air masks. They teach them what happens when you get lost, what happens when you get entangled in something and you have to escape yourself. They teach them about rescue, how to carry somebody out of a burning structure, and everything from rope rescue. So they give them a whole gamut of a lot of information in 1 week. Then their home fire department also teaches them at least once a week. They learn everything from rope rescue to how to use foam, how to pump a fire truck, to how to put a ladder up, to how to climb the 100-foot ladder and rappel down off the ladder. So this way they're versed in multiple different categories. So they understand, like I was saying before, that when the pager goes off and the horn blows or the siren blows at the firehouse and you get on that truck, when you arrive at someone's home or someone's business, you're ready to help. And so it's very labor intensive. And then even after you get off probation and you're a full-fledged firefighter, you still have to go to recurring trainings every year to keep yourself current and ready and able to respond.
I think a lot of people take the volunteer fire department for granted, personally. And what you're just describing, the commitment, and all of a sudden, 3 o'clock in the morning, the siren goes off and away you go. I think they deserve a tremendous amount of credit. Everybody who volunteers, and I don't think people understand the extent of training and time that they have to put in. There's a bit of an image that it's a big party and whatnot. And I would say, yes, camaraderie is an important part of the fire department, but that's secondary compared to all the other stuff that goes on. So it's a little bit of an editorial on my part, because I think the appreciation is not had by all. And I think they have to understand the depth of commitment that's involved.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if you wanted to speak.
No.
But yes, I definitely appreciate the fact that your statement. It is very true. I think a lot of it's a misunderstanding in some cases of how the volunteer fire department works. A lot of people think that everybody sleeps at the firehouse, and actually, new to the 21st century, we do have crews now that sleep in at the firehouse, or they do what they call duty time. So they're in the firehouse when the call comes out, and they enhance and make their response quicker and faster. But it's a lot of people forget when those sirens go off, and I know they irritate people. I have one down the block from me that when it goes off, it'll blow me right out of bed. But that's part of the whole mechanism of alerting people. They have their fire pagers. They have their cell phone that chimes, that lets them know there's a call coming in. But the only true backup to your pagers is those sirens. And they haven't come up with a better way yet. But we tell a lot of people, think of the fact that when that siren goes off, as much as it's an inconvenience to you, those guys may be responding to your neighbor's house that's on fire, or to your neighbor's house who's having a heart attack. And, so your couple of minutes of inconvenience from all that racket noise is getting these guys out of bed. They're responding to the firehouse. I'm a little slower than I used to be. I'm going to be 50 this year. But I have 32 years with the Manhasset Lakeville Fire Department, and that's how I know your son, Eric.
Yep.
And, and there's a camaraderie. I know it's been said, and sometimes we have some, very, probably, I think, misdirected criticisms that it's a club, it's an elite club. It is a club. We have a great time. We have a lot of camaraderie. We do a lot of events together. But the key to this club is it's open to everybody. It's neighbors helping neighbors. So all you have to do is come down. If you have a firefighter that lives on your block, knock on their door, ask them a couple of questions. We are constantly actively recruiting. And a lot of people say, well, how can we help with response times? And the best way to help with response times is more firefighters, from the community. So our demographics here in Long Island and especially in North Hempstead are changing. And we want to get to every community and say, this isn't, it's not the boys club. It's we have a lot of female firefighters that are just as good, competent, and in some cases, some of them are better than some of our firefighters out there. We have emergency medical technicians. So it's a good thing.
We actually have to take a break right now. We will continue with our guest, Mike Uttaro, and we've been talking to him about fire safety. We will be right back.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
And welcome back to Project Independence and You on Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. My name is Rebecca Miller, and I am hosting the show today along with Otto Lohse, and we have been talking with Mike Uttaro. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty when we first started. So, Mike, a lot of information you gave us, and one of the things that Otto was talking about too, I just want to go back a little bit, was the dedication that men and women have when they become volunteer firefighters. Mostly everybody has a full-time job, I'm assuming, and that, when they come to fires, it could be after a full day work. I mean, I know I live across the street from a volunteer fireman over in Farmingdale, and I have to say, as soon as we're sitting in our living room and we're watching our show in the safety of our home, his truck lights go on and off he goes. I live near 110, so it's very busy over there. He comes home, could be a few minutes later or an hour later, off he goes again. Sometimes it's all night long, and it's just really amazing. So, I think everybody is very appreciative of it. I just, like Otto was saying, do people understand that, everybody is, volunteering their time, and they're raising families and working full time too?
Oh yeah, it is a challenge. We have in just my department alone, Manhasset Lakeville, we have doctors, attorneys, construction workers, plumbers, electricians. We have commissioners of government in New York City. We have authors. We have a whole gamut of people, and it is actually amazing to see that when the whistle goes off and we get on the trucks, how they all become firefighters, and they all know the job and the task that they have to do when they get it done. It's my wife is she's gotten used to me getting up from the table to run out to a fire. She doesn't even hear me sometimes get up in the middle of the night, although I make a racket knocking things around as I'm trying to get out. But every one of the men and women who volunteer can probably have the same stories. And you do it because it universally, when I ask my friends and my comrades, Otto's son, Eric, the feeling you get of accomplishment and what you're doing for somebody is, it sounds cliche, but it really does matter. It makes you feel good that you've done something well and you've served your community. You get the thanks. You have a big working fire, and somebody comes out with cups of coffee, or somebody brings donuts or cold water. It's a community oriented thing, and it makes you feel good that sense of community still exists in this crazy world. But it's something, like I said, it's not, we don't want to scare anybody. It is a lot of training. It is a big commitment, but we definitely feel that what you get back, me in particular, I get a busted sink at the house, and I can call so-and-so from the fire department that I know that's a plumber, and he comes over and helps. He's trying to get a business open and his plans are stuck at the fire marshal's office. He calls me and says, so-and-so's trying to open a restaurant. Can you see if his plans have been submitted? We help each other out. Everybody has their specialty, and it's like a family. So
Right.
I definitely encourage people to, get involved.
Let me ask you, I'm sorry, but getting volunteers, I think most organizations are having difficulties getting people. Are you having problems or more difficulties getting volunteers now than you did in the past?
Oh, definitely. When I first joined in 1989, there was a waiting list for some departments just to get in. It was a very robust membership. It started to decline over time, right around the time of the events of 9/11, which is 20 years ago now. There was definitely a spike of volunteerism and wanting to help your community and community spirit, especially in the memory of all those folks that were killed. And even that's kind of dipped off a little bit, and dipped off even more than it was before. So we definitely need more people. A lot of companies are at half capacity right now. I know in Manhasset Lakeville, each company has an active roster that go up to 60. My company, Company 5, we're only at about 35 members. And when you think of people at work or committed to a family event or whatever it may be, when that siren goes off or the horn goes off, you have that much smaller of a pot to draw from. So extra members are always necessary. We have outreach groups through the fire marshal's office and the fire commission, recruitment committees, that if there's a community group, especially a newer community group, a new community of people moving into the country from overseas or coming in from Queens or from New York City, if they have a community forum, whether it be at a temple, a mosque, a church, a community center, reach out to us, let us know, and we'll come and speak to you and tell you about everything, and hopefully bring some applications with us.
That's great. That's good to know. Before we kind of broach our topic on fire safety for seniors, excuse me, I was in a situation this weekend on Saturday, and I was kind of not sure what to do. We're not, we see the sirens, we pull over. Excuse me, I'm so sorry.
Must be catching. I had the same problem.
So we're not really sure, so here's the situation I was in. I'm driving south on the Meadowbrook Parkway. I was going to Long Beach. Driving, not speeding, of course, I would never do that. And getting fairly close to the Loop Parkway. It was like 5 o'clock, people coming home from the beach. I'm going toward the beach, and nice open road. And all of a sudden, there's a fire truck northbound, goes over the divider to make a U-turn and starts heading south. So now there's a fire truck in the left lane. They were heading to an accident. I had no idea what was going on. So now you've got cars that are in the middle and right lane. And none of us seem to know what to do, even though the fire truck was going a little bit slower in the left lane heading south. We're all heading south. Do we slow down and not pass the fire truck? And then I'll tell you what happened. But, I was kind of trailing behind because I wasn't sure what to do, because it was, we're on the parkway. And, it was scary. They have to stop traffic on a parkway out of nowhere, but luckily we saw the fire truck crossing the divider. So, something's up. So you start to slow down. But then once the fire truck is there, what is the right thing for drivers to do? And not just in that situation but any kind, when you see a fire truck going somewhere with the lights on, and as drivers, what's the best thing for us to do?
The best thing to do is, which you were doing correctly, is trying your best to yield to what they're doing. That's a unique situation you described about that U-turn. Not quite sure what to do. I know my company, we're on the parkways and expressway a lot for auto accidents and things of that nature. So the best thing that we can say, and from being a driver of one of the rigs, is just to pull off to the right and let us pass, make an aisle for us, especially in traffic. But the best thing is just slow your speed down is a very important part. I don't think anybody does the speed limit anymore. But drop your speed. If the truck's coming up behind you, we're hoping and expecting that you're going to pull to the right.
Yeah.
As most times when you yield, you pull off to the right. That's very helpful. We do have people that as soon as we pass, they hop right on our tail and follow us to traffic. That's not a very wise thing to do. The best thing you can do is yield. And then when on a parkway, there is a law now that you have to move over. It's the move over law for emergency vehicles. So if we're stopped at an accident, you should try your best to give us at least the lane's space to pull past us. And because the highway, believe it or not, going into working fires, while it is dangerous, one of the most dangerous places for us right now is on the highway. People just aren't paying attention. We had a car into the woods on the northern state about 2 weeks ago when I was driving the rescue truck. And they have these nightly speeding events with motorcycles and cars on the parkway. They actually went around my truck on both sides through the accident scene. And it was a wake-up call. We brought the next truck in and blocked all the lanes. We just basically shut the parkway down. But it's frightening, it's intimidating out there. But being good citizens such as yourselves, the best thing you can do is move over when you see a police officer, fire truck, or ambulance to give us our space. And if you see one coming up behind you with its sirens going on, or you're approaching an intersection, they should be pausing at the intersection. We teach our guys to do that. This isn't the Indianapolis 500. They shouldn't be barreling through intersections, but pause and yield to them so they can get through, so they get to where they're going to render aid.
Right.
I would assume. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We continued, when I continued on the road there on the northbound side, there was a multi-car accident, 2 flipped cars and cars that went off into, I guess, the wooded area. A lot of different fire departments and ambulances and police were there. It's that part of the Meadowbrook Parkway where there's not a lot of exits. It's first starting out. So I assume that, fire department got on ahead of the accident and had to make the U-turn to go back. So it was kind of a unique situation. I was never in that situation before, but I hope everybody was okay on the other side. That's good information.
I'm assuming that to be a driver of a fire truck, not everybody in the company drives the fire truck. That there are people who are trained specially to do that, or is everybody capable of driving the truck?
Well, we'd like to say everybody is capable, but there is a driver's test. They have what's called pump tests, or for the ladder trucks, the ladder test of setting it up. There's some folks that they're not cut out for it. But for the most part, we try to advocate. The more drivers we have, the quicker, again, we can get the trucks out. But it's a unique experience hopping out of a Subaru and then hopping into the front seat of a multi-ton truck and driving it down the road. But for me, yearly you have to do a pump test where you prove that you can pump the water through the truck and set things up correctly. We have the rescue tools for the jaws of life. We have to make sure we can turn our generators on our pumps. Because you can't forget any step. You're the one delaying it. And trust me, all your fellow firefighters pointing fingers at you. But yes, there is a rigorous driver's training program. We take them out on EVOC, or emergency vehicle operations courses, to make sure that they can safely back the trucks up. We have very strict policies so we don't hit anybody. But yes, it's another thing that you learn in the fire service if once you become a firefighter and you're ready to go and step up to the next level.
Now, the academy that you talked about, all this training that's involved, is it like a full-time academy? Is it like a school, or how many people are actually working in that academy to train people? Just trying to get a picture.
We'll get Mike's response when we come back. We have to take a quick break, and we will continue with our guest, Mike Uttaro, who is the First Assistant Chief Fire Marshal, Nassau County. And we will be right back to talking about fire safety for seniors.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
Welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I am your host, Rebecca Miller, and my co-host today is Otto Lohse, and of course, the fabulous radio show producer, Christina Liu. We've been talking with Mike Uttaro all about fire safety and just a lot of information that you've been providing. So we're really grateful for all the information. And then we were I know Otto had a question right before break. So Otto, if you want to just kind of give a quick little recap.
We talk about academy for training for the probies, as you put it, and it seems like it's an ongoing facility. I was just curious as to where it is and how big it is, and is it every day? Is it training somebody every day, kind of thing?
Yeah, the Fire Service Academy for Nassau County is actually out in Old Bethpage. It's nestled between the cement factories, garbage dump, and the Bethpage golf course. It's been there for many years. It's trained thousands of firefighters. It's staffed by a full-time chief instructor and deputy chief instructor and office staff. All their other instructors are per diem, and they work there. They work other jobs. We have many city firefighters, New York City firefighters, firefighters from here in Nassau. They take a test to be an instructor, and we have a wealth of talents. We've had some of the best instructors you can ask for, but they're out there and they actually teach these classes. The academy runs the hands-on courses when they actually light the fires pretty much about 5 days a week. They do weekend courses and weekday courses throughout the entire year, even in the winter months when we're not training outside. So they come to the individual firehouses to teach these courses. The unique thing about the buildings we have that they don't have in a lot of other places is they actually light live fires. They have pans of oil with pallets of wood that they light the room on fire. It's controlled to that pan, but it gives a lot of the same type of characteristics that you would see inside of a home or business. So we have the Merchant Marines come to train on a mock-up of a ship. So they learn how to fight shipboard fires. But it's a very unique place. We have firefighters that visit from overseas, from Germany and other locations, just for the experience of actually going in. A lot of other academies use propane and theatrical smoke. This is real disgusting smoke and real hot fires. And we'd like to say that our volunteers out here get a leg up on everybody else because of the fact of that situation and that environment they're put in to learn how to suppress a fire. But again, it's a great academy, a lot of dedicated people out there, and I think they keep everyone top notch here in Nassau.
You know, it's interesting.
I live right by that area, so I pass it a lot. And there's that one building, and it's always on fire. I mean, you guys are always how is that building still standing after all?
Well, I'll tell you, they're not cheap, those buildings. The county owns the facility, and the Vocation Education Extension Board, which is like a school district, runs it. They're budgeted through Nassau County through tax dollars to run these courses. But those buildings were just recently, we call it the dwelling fire, and there's a mock-up of a store, like your basic downtown stores. Those were just replaced, and they were a couple of $1 million to, their special construction was cement and coated cement and steel. And yes, you're right, they burn them over and over and over again. In fact, there's a little observation area. If you're ever in the area on a weeknight, you can go out there. You have to stay in that observation area, but you can actually watch what they're doing.
That's interesting. I was in the Navy, and part of boot camp was you had like you mentioned, what made me think about it is the merchant marine training and shipboard and whatnot. I ended up on an aircraft carrier. But the point I'm getting at is we had to have like 2 days of firefighting training in Navy boot camp, which I remember very little of, to be blunt about it. But what I do remember is having to go through a building that it was burning and had smoke from one end to the other. And this was in the 50s, so we probably didn't worry too much about what we inhaled at the time. But that was a scary experience by itself, just going through the building with all the smoke. I can still remember getting through on the other end, and the feeling, which was not a very good feeling. My point is that I didn't realize you also get involved with training things like people who for boats, like merchant marine. So the scope of what your department is involved with is much bigger than most people realize.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a great facility. We actually have a Long Island Railroad car. It's the Louis Skeeta training facility. He was a former chief fire marshal of the Long Island Railroad, and it has a platform. It has the train car, and both the fire service and the police department actually train on it for if you had a train accident, which we had about a year or two ago. We had in Westbury with the derailment that they actually had, and the training on that train car was so pivotal to the training that the firefighters utilized that day to gain access and help rescue. I think it was almost 1,500 passengers off the trains to evacuate after that accident. We have propane. They have the propane barbecues just like you have in your yard, that they simulate a leak in a fire, so they have to go in there under a hose stream to stop the leak and shut the tank off. It's a lot of very interesting stuff out there. So hopefully the community rest assured that your firefighters are very well trained thanks to this academy.
So, Senior Talk Radio, here we are. There's a lot of, obvious safety protocol for people of all ages. So, but, we're Project Independence, and, of course, we service people 60 and over in the town of North Hempstead. Before we get into other avenues of safety, I'm curious. I'm always, concerned about carbon monoxide, and also because it's, you can't smell it, you don't know it's happening unless you have an alarm, and I think for seniors it's even more frightening. Can you talk a little bit about the best way to avoid a catastrophe with carbon monoxide, and maybe some of the things that seniors could do in their home to be aware of it, and even understand what would actually cause a carbon monoxide leak? I mean, maybe people don't even realize that some of their appliances or their oil burner, or what appliances and devices in the home, to be wary of.
I guess the biggest thing in your home that causes carbon monoxide issues is your boiler or your furnace. And the best way to make sure that that is operating correctly and exhausting the fumes and the byproducts of combustion, service once a year. That's what actually, it sounds so simple, but it really is that simple.
Right.
Once a year, you should have your company come in, service company, make sure they run the boiler, make sure there's no leaks. They have their own meters that they bring in. Make sure that your flue pipe is clear. I actually, in my own home, was having a problem with the boiler. I brought somebody in, and I realized that over time, most homes that are built, at least older homes, they're built with a clay or a terracotta type insert in your chimney. And over time, when you switch to gas, because gas burns differently, natural gas caused this to come apart. And actually, and it doesn't happen always, so I don't want to alarm anybody, but in my case, the terracotta insert in my chimney collapsed into the chimney, and it actually blocked off the flue. So it was expensive, but I had to get the aligner replaced in my chimney. The service company came in and cleaned everything out and made it good. But one of the reasons that I realized that happened is my carbon monoxide detector started to chirp intermittently. And I was curious that there was a problem. So I investigated and I brought somebody in. And that's what we advocate. If you have a problem with your carbon monoxide detector, and if you go out and buy another one and that problem still exists, it's time to bring somebody in and have them check these things out.
Mike, I understand that now. I just put one in, or several actually. 10-year battery, dual smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector. Is that something you would recommend, or what's recommended as your approach to the detectors?
Well, the dual unit is a great unit, the smoke and carbon monoxide detector. But just having detectors in is important enough because of the fact that just to have them in place and make sure these 10-year battery units are fantastic. Too many times you always hear whenever you have to change your clocks, change your batteries. People do that, but daily life gets in the way and you forget. You put these 10-year sealed battery units in. I advocate you take a Sharpie marker and write on the outside the year that you put it in. And when you take a look at it, make sure things are happening correctly. Check that date out. And when that 10 years and 10 years sadly flies by too quickly these days, you replace that unit. But the carbon monoxide, make sure you have one. The thing that people do that's the biggest mistake is they put it by the boiler or they put it in the garage. It's going to probably go off in there because you're right in proximity to the unit putting off that gas. Where they really should be is where you sit and watch TV, where you read, where you sleep, the most important thing. Even where sleeping may occur, which is actually written in the code. So if many times, like myself, I sit in the chair watching the ball game and I'll fall asleep. I don't sleep down there all night, but it's good to have where you can hear it going off on the regular floors, especially the sleeping floors. And the code says that these devices should be within about 15 feet of where you sleep. So when they do go off, they can awaken you. And they go off at such a low level of carbon monoxide detection. It gives you the time to react, call the fire department to come in with their more sophisticated meters to try to trace out where that CO may be coming from. But if you have it in a basement stairwell and the door is closed and you're on the second floor sleeping, and if you're a heavy sleeper, you may not, even if that initiates because it detects the problem, you may not hear it. So make sure it's always within earshot. And if you have someone living with you in the home or somebody comes to visit if you're living home alone, go to your bedroom, lay down and have them press the button and have the door closed. And if you can't hear it, maybe you need to get another one. This way you always have that safety device nearby.
Right.
What about a thing like a fire extinguisher? Do you recommend having a fire extinguisher in your home, or maybe even more than one? And
Yeah, well, first and foremost, you want to make sure you have your carbon monoxide like we talked about, and of course your smoke detectors. So before you graduate the fire extinguishers, make sure you have at least some working smoke detectors in your house. And working smoke detectors, so everyone knows, it's not just new homes, it's new and existing. And that's the law. They should be in every bedroom. They should be in that little foyer area, if you have one, just outside the bedroom, and then at least one on every floor. And they do make them, if you happen to have to replace your detectors and get new ones, they can only be sold now in 10-year sealed battery. And they make devices that you can buy a kit that they speak to each other. So if the smoke detector in your bedroom goes off, it'll start sounding in the living room as well because they are connected by radio. Those are great systems to have. Or you can actually, and it gets expensive, obviously, you can have a hardwired system that connects all the devices, they beep together. Once you have that in place, so at least if you're sleeping, it detects smoke and gets you and your family out safely. As you were asking about the fire extinguisher, get a portable fire extinguisher. I usually recommend get a 5-pound size extinguisher. Those little tiny cylinder ones that you see on people's boats and on the trunk of their car, they're great, but oftentimes they can malfunction. So I would get a 5-pound extinguisher. Something you can lift is important. We went to a person's house once. They had a 20-pound. Yes.
Let's continue with this information. We actually have to take a break. We will continue with our guest, Mike Uttaro. He's been talking about fire safety. You're listening to Project Independence and You on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We will be right back.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. You know, those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm your host, Rebecca Miller, and co-host today is Otto Lohse. And of course, our wonderful radio show producer, Christina Liu. We've been talking to Mike Uttaro, who's the first assistant chief fire marshal at Nassau County.
Soon to be
Welcome
the
back.
chief.
Yes, next week.
Next week.
Yes,
So
next week.
congratulations.
Yes,
I mean,
thank
I really
you.
want to hear about, I really want to hear a lot more about senior safety, but to get to this point, you have dedicated obviously your life and career to what you do. So, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your services.
And congratulations.
And congratulations.
You report to who? Laura?
The county executive, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. She's
So,
going to
yeah,
be on
it's
right after you.
Oh yeah, okay. Tell
Yeah.
her I said hello.
Yeah.
She's actually she's been very good to the fire service, I have to say. Yeah, I'm excited about the promotion. It's been a lot of work, but I get to work with a lot of great people, and it truly gets you here. You don't do it by yourself, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But as far as to get back to your questions about safety, the portable fire extinguishers, as Otto had mentioned, it's not a bad thing to have in the home. Just make sure that it's always in a readily accessible place that you know. Make sure it's not too heavy to lift. Some folks go out and get this big 20-pound fire extinguisher, and now you can't lug it around and bring it to where you need it when you have an emergency. We consider this is a first aid appliance. Like if you cut your finger, you put a Band-Aid on it. If you continue to bleed, you might have to go to the hospital. The same should be thought of with this. First of all, if you have a fire in your home, before you do anything else, make sure the fire department's notified. If you share the home with somebody, yell to them, call the fire department. Make sure help is on the way. Too many people don't do that. They're embarrassed. They have a fire in the house. God, I don't want anyone to see this. This is embarrassing. All the fire trucks in the street. Make sure the fire department is notified. If you have a portable fire extinguisher and you can give a quick shot to a fire on your stove, a fire in a bedroom, on a bed, maybe a fire outside, maybe your barbecue is on fire. That's great. If you can get the fire knocked down, wonderful. If you can't get that knocked down in the first couple of seconds, it's time to leave the house. It's time to evacuate. Tell the fire department the best thing you could do is tell them, number one, everybody's out of the house and safe. And number two, where is the fire? And let them do the job they're trained to do and get in there. And I promise you, if you call them early enough, they will get in there and they'll take care of that fire and knock it out for you.
Mike, is smoking still the number one cause of house fires, if you will?
I wouldn't say it's the number one cause. One of the biggest causes is, especially in the winter months, is the use of space heaters and electrical fires. Smoking is still something. If you're going to smoke, make sure they make lots of devices that you can safely dispose of a cigarette. A coffee cup on the end table is not the best way. Another thing that's been done, I've seen too many fires that have caused by this. If you're on oxygen, smoking is not something that's an option. And people make that mistake sometimes. It's a habit. It's a tough habit to kick. It's something some people enjoy, especially if they're by themselves. But it's a very dangerous thing to do. But smoking, again, make sure you're not laying down, that you're going to fall asleep. Make sure you properly dispose of those cigarettes when they're out. Dump some water on them, put them in a metal container that contains them. But as far as safety and common causes of fires in the home, which I'm sure people are interested in we have a fire investigations division that when a fire does occur, these men and we have one lady who's fantastic. They go out in the field, they dig out the fire, and they find out where the cause and what caused it. I find it fascinating. I'm not that talented when it comes to that field, but these men and women that are in the division do a phenomenal job. We have actually 2 dogs that are arson detection dogs. They detect and smell accelerants. That helps us prosecute arson cases, Leah and Pilot. So we're lucky to have 2 dogs here in the office. But the common causes that they see, and they tell me, which I was just speaking to them earlier before I was coming on your show, space heaters. Never leave them unattended. Make sure there's no loose bedding, especially if you get cold at night and you like to have one in your room. They make units that when they tip over, they automatically shut down, which is a great feature. Make sure they're not too close to your bed, too close to your couch, someplace where you may knock the blanket off and or sheet and it lands on the unit. Make sure that your pets are away from it. Pets can become a problem because they get excited, they knock something over that wasn't knocked over, and it lands on the space heater. You should have at least 5 feet from anything that could burn around that space heater. Never use extension cords. Too many people say, I can't reach the outlet, so let me put this extension cord on the space heater. Let me plug it into a power strip. Those are fateful mistakes. Those constantly have problems with melting and burning. They overload the rating on those extension cords. So those are not something to use. Another common cause is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
I was going to ask about, I'm sorry, the kitchen. So as seniors get older and sometimes they wind up living alone, they stop using their oven. And they'll sometimes store stuff in the oven, number one. And also they start using the toaster oven for their main source of heating up because they're just cooking for themselves. And I have had 2 toaster oven fires myself. So those, I like, what's your feeling on those toaster ovens? And, also one of the things we talk about a lot is if it a fire or, they're hurt, the house has to be accessible. You have to be able to get into the house. So, things have to be out of the way, clear paths, that kind of a thing. So I'm interested to know your, kind of advice for that kind of kitchen safety. And also, when you experienced, entering a house that, maybe be a little cluttered or things that you should never really keep around, like too many newspapers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the start off with the toaster ovens, a lot of people rely on them. We have them in my house as well. They are a heating appliance. They're like a space heater, although they're contained. So again, you want to make sure that you have some separation. You don't want to have the paper towel dispenser right next to it or keep towels or boxes. So you want to keep some separation. The unit puts off heat. All you have to do is put your hands near it and you'll feel the heat coming off of it. Maintenance of the device, they're inherently very safe units to operate, to toast or make something small to eat. The biggest reason a lot of times fires occur within the unit is the drippings and the things that land on the crumb plate. Make sure you keep that clean, empty it out at least once a week, scrape it off, make sure it's nice and clean. Maybe put a piece of tin foil down there so that it's easier just to pick up and get rid of that. That's usually what starts the fire, and then it sets fire to whatever's cooking, and the next thing you know, you have a big problem. And as far as accessibility, very important to make sure you always, number one, when you call the fire department and you say, I live at 43 Jones Street, you want to make sure that the number 43 is displayed outside your house. Too many times people have that obscured. It's covered by bushes. It fell off the wall and you didn't put it back up. Make sure it's out there somewhere so that the fire department can find your address. And as far as entering, lots of folks, including my mom, when she was with me, she loved to keep different things. She liked her magazines. She liked different crafts. She did a lot of knitting, so she had boxes of yarn.
Sure.
That's all well and great. Keep it organized. Make sure there's adequate paths for you to move around your own home. Make sure that it's not on top of wires. Make sure you don't have furniture pressed against wires. That does cause wires to short circuit. But try to keep your home, your garage, your premise, the area where you're living in as orderly a condition as possible. And I'm sure through great organizations and programs like Project Independence, if you need help, I'm sure there's someone you can reach out to help you get rid of some garbage, organize some stuff. We don't come upon these homes too often, but when we do, we try to let the local government know about it. We even offer them help. We have smoke detectors here, things we talked about. If you don't have a smoke detector for yourself, there's programs out there. There's veterans programs. The fire marshal ourselves, we had a news conference with our county executive following that tragic fire in Garden City. We don't have thousands of smoke detectors, but we maintain a decent quantity here So if you don't have one in your home, and don't be shy, if you can't afford it, people have difficult times, give us a call. We don't put your name in the newspaper. We don't broadcast it. We'll deliver a device to you. If you have trouble installing it, we'll reach out to the local fire department, who will help you get that device installed so you have some safety in your own home.
I had a personal experience this week that led me to thinking about the show. I was at a hotel. I still do a little bit of a business thing. I was at a hotel, first time in a year and a half, in Deptford, New Jersey. And all of a sudden, 3 o'clock in the morning, this week, this happened, the fire alarm goes off, and bing, 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 and it comes out pretty loud in a hotel. And all of a sudden, people are banging on the door, get out of your room. This is 3 o'clock in the morning. So first thing, okay, I put my pants on, my shoes on, and in my case, I stick my hearing aids in my ear, and away I go. And now we're outside, and we had to stay outside until the fire department arrived, which they did, the volunteers in Deptford, New Jersey. And where I was going with this is all of a sudden there's a bunch of people standing out in the parking lot at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were there till about 3:45. And I'm looking around at how a lot of people had their luggage with them, and the mental preparedness for how to handle that. It turns out that there was no fire. It turns out that somebody was smoking in the hallway and set off the smoke detectors for the whole hotel. And, it was a whole different experience. But my point is that people like me who are not experienced in that whole thing, which is most of us, all of a sudden you're in a situation where you have to react. And, to react, some people didn't come out. They came out to the parking lot like 25 minutes later. And I'm saying if there was a real fire, they would have been in hot water. So how do you mentally, you mentally have to be prepared almost to handle an emergency, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing you can do with that is, we tell everybody, and this goes for when you go to a restaurant or any place that you're not familiar with. I do a class for fire safety for our codes about historic fires like Coconut Grove and the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, and things that resulted in many fatalities. One of the most important things you could do, like in your instance, is when we get on an airplane, you sit there and you get the world famous safety speech from the flight attendants. They tell you where your exits are. Believe it or not, simple thing like going to a wedding event, a restaurant, a hotel, like you were talking about, know where your exits are, know where two of them are. So most people react. The Rhode Island fire that killed over 100 people. One of the biggest things that we found after people studied it was that a lot of people commonly go in the front door, and when a problem happens, they're going to go for the door they're familiar with, which was the door they entered through. But meanwhile, there's exits nearby. That fire, if you remember the horror of that, there were a lot of people jammed and piled up by the front door. And it was a horrible, horrible thing to have to witness and see, and the video of it. But they found that there were 3 other exits that were almost not used whatsoever. And nobody thought to go to those exits because they were panicking. They were going to the exit that they were familiar with. So when you're staying at a place, be familiar about your exits. Wear something warm. You may have to get outside safely, and realize that if the alarm's going off, don't worry about what everyone else is doing. And you were right in worrying about yourself. You get your pants on, you put your hearing aids in, you get outside to safety, and you wait for direction from people.
Thank you, Mike, so much. I'm sorry, but we have to go to a break. Thank you so much for joining us today and all the really, really important information you provided.